episode, I want to talk to you about narcissistic abuse and polyvagal theory. Now, don't worry if you're kind of thinking, Caroline, is this going to be a science lesson? It isn't. But I personally believe when you understand how your nervous system works, it can really help lift that shame and guilt that you may feel around your reactions in any given moment. And how I explain polyvagal theory to my clients and in my narcissistic trauma recovery program is using my trusty ladder. So I want you to imagine now that there's this ladder, and this is how we're going to talk about your nervous system. And Deb Dana really explains this so beautifully well, and I adapt it to you when we're talking about narcissistic abuse and the trauma of narcissistic abuse. So if you think about a ladder, at the top of the ladder is where we feel safe and connected. Because think about it, if you were going to climb to the top of a ladder, you would only really do that if you felt confident to do so. So the top of the ladder represents within our nervous system when we recognize there may be challenges, but we still feel safe and we still feel connected. Now, what happens then is if we get a trigger, we move down that ladder into our fight and flight element of our nervous system. And this is what we call our sympathetic nervous system. So this is when our body becomes more flooded with cortisol, ready to either go into a fight or run away. And think about it from the animal kingdom. You know, that moment where they get flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, that might be because there's a predator chasing them and they've gone into the flight. Normally they'll run away. And then if they get caught, they will then go into fight. So if we bring this into narcissistic abuse, if you're feeling okay at home and then maybe you see the narcissist or you get a message from them or something, and you can feel your body start to get flooded with cortisol because your system is danger, danger, danger. Now, there might not actually be danger, but your system perceives there is danger. This actually comes from past experiences as well. And that's why we react then in that moment of fight or flight. And that can manifest with, say, narcissistic abuse with things like you might feel really, really anxious, you might feel really, really angry. Those elements where you feel like you've got more energy because you've got that cortisol in your body. It's going to those outer limbs, those extremities, ready for you if you needed to fight or flight. So it's doing a wonderful job with the information it's been given. But obviously, when we know the narcissist isn't actually life-threatening, it's your perception that it's life-threatening due to your own past experiences. This is when we need to get curious about that. And then what happens if we still perceive threat and danger with the narcissist? Let's say you're having a conversation with them and you can feel yourself going into fight or flight. And then they're maybe saying things to you, they're accusing you of things that you know aren't true. What can happen is you go even further down the ladder because they are really triggering some really core self-worthiness wounds then. And your system is going, this is really, really dangerous now. I need to go into survival mode. And this is where you go down the ladder to the bottom of the ladder then, where we go into freeze. We go into survival mode. This is where many of us would feel tired, exhausted, where we feel like we've got little or no energy because our body is really just focusing on keeping us alive at this stage due to perception, again, remember, and it's literally about just those major organs. So it's not bothered about any cortisol or energy going to our extremities for us to fight or flight or run away or get angry. It's the system at this stage is like, this is really, really dangerous now. I'm in survival mode. I need to be at the bottom of that ladder in full-blown protection mode and survival mode. This is often where we will dissociate, numb out. Everything becomes the perception of pain. Now, this ladder, this polyvagal theory is fantastic with explaining how our system works. And when we think about if we were being attacked or something, absolutely we want our nervous system to react like that because it is actual danger. We may need to run away. We may need to fight. We may need to pretend to be dead in whatever situation. And our system is wonderful for doing that. But when we talk about polyvagal theory, which is our parasympathetic nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system. So remember, sympathetic is the fight and flight, which is the middle of the ladder. Top of the ladder is where we feel safe and connected. And that is actually our ventral vagus nerve. So a offshoot of the parasympathetic nervous system. And the bottom of the ladder is another offshoot that is actually our dorsal vagus nerve, because that gets split into two. Then what we should be doing is getting really curious then that if we know we're not in actual danger. Now, I will put a caveat in here. Some of you may be in actual danger, and if you are, you really need to seek out, support locally with that, because your safety is priority in all of this. But if you know that really it's just the behavior, it's the words that they are saying, but boy, oh boy, are you reacting in your nervous system, feeling angry, feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling dissociated, lots of protector parts are coming up for you, then you know your nervous system is perceiving the situation with the narcissist then to be dangerous, to be threatening, to be life-threatening in some cases. And this is why then it is really important for you to get curious. And I love the way Polyvagal explains really how our nervous system works, because we used to really think it was just sympathetic and parasympathetic, but we now know that this vagus nerve, which runs down the back of your neck, is so integral in helping explain why we react the way that we do. And I could do a whole session on all of this, literally. In my narcissistic trauma-informed coaching certification, we learn a lot about all of this. We go into a huge amount of depth around it. And in my narcissistic trauma recovery program, there's a whole action lab on polyvagal theory, explaining how the nervous system works. But I just wanted to jump on really and just do a quick episode for you so that you can start to recognize wherever you are on your ladder of tolerance, wherever you are in your nervous system, that is not you being weak. It is an involuntary response to your system's perception of danger. So if you are going into fight, flight, and freeze, you're in your sympathetic in the middle part of the ladder, or at the bottom part of the ladder in your dorsal vagal, freeze, dissociated, because your system perceives threat and danger, I really invite you to get curious. Where could your perception of danger with the narcissist be coming from? What self-worthiness wound is the narcissist triggering in you that your system is like, whoa, don't want to feel like that ever again? Get curious about that. When did that happen? What is your system trying to protect you from feeling that your system thinks would be too painful for you to feel? Because when you go into fight, flight, or freeze, when you react in these ways, when you have these protector parts coming up, it's because your system thinks if it was something else that would be more painful, it would be even more dangerous. So wherever you are right now, however you are feeling, I want you to know you're not weak, you're not powerless, this isn't your fault. This is just your system perceiving that how you are right now is the safest and least painful for you. And polyvagal theory really helps explain that. I will often in my group say, where are you in your nervous system today? Are we ventral vagal, sympathetic, dorsal vagal? We use that kind of language because nobody teaches people in school how our nervous system works. So if as adults we start reacting in certain ways, we start to feel guilty, we start to feel shame, we start to feel weak, we start to feel it's our fault. And it isn't. This is just our system based on past perceptions of other experiences that we have had, events that we've had, that we've interpreted to be painful for us. And our system is there like an army, just trying to protect us from feeling that. So let me know, where do you think you are living the most in your nervous system? Are you at the top of the ladder, feeling safe and connected, still knowing there's challenges, but recognizing it isn't dangerous, it's just challenging, like the narcissist? Are you in your sympathetic, fight, flight, feeling angry, feeling anxious all of the time? Or are you at the bottom of the ladder in freeze, in dorsal vagal, feeling like you're dissociate, you don't feel anything, you're numbing out, you feel tired all the time, you're exhausted? Let me know, what percentage of your life currently are you living in each of these three areas within your nervous system? Top of the ladder, remember, is ventral vagal. Middle of the ladder, fight, flight, is your sympathetic. Bottom of the ladder, freeze, dissociated, is dorsal vagal. I would love to know, because when we start to understand our system, we can really start to lift that shame and guilt that we associated with the trauma of narcissistic abuse.